Christmas morning at my parents' house. My brother Tyler bolts to the garage, where a bright red Ferrari waits with a oversized bow on top. Mom and Dad smile proudly as he jumps around shouting with excitement. I open the small box set aside for me under the tree. Inside is a pair of dollar store socks, the $2 price tag still attached. Tyler bursts into laughter. Mom just shrugs and says, "Stay humble, Nicholas. People receive what they've earned in life." My heart sinks as I realize that even at 28, nothing has changed. That evening, sitting on my childhood bed, I stared at those cheap socks while Tyler revved the Ferrari in the driveway. The engine roared loudly, each sound reminding me of the wide gap in how my parents treated their two sons. I had watched this dynamic repeat in different forms for almost 3 decades. When I was 10 and Tyler was 7, he got a deluxe gaming console for his birthday, while I received a clearance rack coloring book. As teenagers, Tyler's room was remodeled with new furniture, a flat-screen TV, and a high-end gaming setup. My room looked exactly as it had since elementary school. Faded superhero posters and a squeaky twin bed. The favoritism stretched far beyond material things. During my senior year of high school, I spent months preparing my valedictorian speech. The ceremony happened to be on the same Saturday as Tyler's Little League playoff game. Without hesitation, my parents chose the game over my graduation. They insisted his athletic future mattered more than my academic achievements. "You'll have other chances to give speeches," my mother said dismissively. "Tyler only gets one shot at making the championship team." College applications brought another reminder of where I stood in the family. I spent night after night researching scholarships, writing essays, and completing financial aid forms. My parents refused to contribute anything toward my education, claiming that paying my own way would teach responsibility and work ethic. Meanwhile, they willingly covered Tyler's tuition, housing, and spending money at a private liberal arts college, costing $45,000 per year. I held 3 part-time jobs throughout college and still maintained a 3.8 GPA in mechanical engineering. Tyler spent 4 years partying through a communications degree, barely graduating with a 2.1. Yet somehow, he was the one they bragged about. The Ferrari on Christmas morning was just the latest example. As I picked up the piles of wrapping paper Tyler had left scattered around the living room, I heard my parents talking quietly in the kitchen. Their voices carried through the thin walls. "Do you think Nicholas seemed upset about his gift?" my mother asked, sounding mildly curious rather than concerned. "He'll be fine," my father answered. "Besides, Tyler needs reliable transportation for his new marketing job. His old Honda wasn't suitable for that field." I froze. Tyler's marketing job? Last I knew, he was working part-time at a coffee shop, always complaining it was beneath him. When did he suddenly become a marketing professional? "I'm just glad we can finally support him properly," my mother added. $5,000 a month should cover his living costs while he gets established. The wrapping paper slipped from my hands. $5,000 a month? I was barely surviving in my 1-bedroom apartment, working 60-hour weeks at an engineering firm, paying for rent, groceries, utilities, and student loans entirely on my own. I hadn't received a dime from my parents since turning 18, and they had always claimed it was to help me build character. "Has Nicholas ever asked for help?" my father wondered. "Of course not," my mother laughed. "He's always been too proud." Tyler, on the other hand, understands that family is there to help. I quietly went upstairs, stunned by what I had just learned. For a decade, I believed my parents treated both of us equally as adults. I had accepted their explanation that paying my own way was an important life lesson. Now I discovered that Tyler had been getting the equivalent of a $60,000 yearly allowance while I struggled to stay afloat. Later that night, I helped my father carry boxes to the basement. A folder slipped from his hands, scattering papers across the floor. As I helped gather them, I saw bank statements showing monthly transfers to Tyler, $5,000 every month for the last 3 years. "Dad, I couldn't help noticing these statements," I said carefully. His face tightened. "That's private family business, Nicholas." "I understand," I replied, "but I'm confused. You and Mom always said financially supporting adult children would make them dependent. Why is Tyler receiving these payments?" My father snatched the papers away. "Tyler's situation is different. He's still finding his career path and needs help during this transition." "You've always managed on your own. I've been paying my own way for 10 years while working full-time," I said. "Doesn't that show I could have used support too?" His expression hardened. "This isn't a competition. We make financial decisions based on what each son needs. Tyler needs more guidance right now." I wanted to argue, to point out the obvious double standard, but I knew it wouldn't matter. My parents had built a justification system around their favoritism, and logic wouldn't change their perspective. Driving home that night, Tyler sped past me on the highway in his Ferrari, honking and waving enthusiastically, completely unaware of how I felt. The bright red car disappeared into the distance, leaving me alone with my thoughts and growing resentment. It wasn't just about gifts or money. It was about being valued and supported equally within my own family. After 28 years of being the reliable, hard-working son who never complained, I was beginning to understand that my parents saw my independence as proof that I didn't need their help or affection. The pattern was unmistakable and painful. 2 days after Christmas, I returned to my parents' house to retrieve some old textbooks from my childhood room. The house was quiet. Tyler was out showing the Ferrari to friends, and my parents were supposedly running errands. I climbed the narrow staircase, each step reminding me of years spent feeling overlooked. My room was exactly as I had left it at 18. The same faded sports pennants, the same desk still cluttered with academic awards my parents never displayed. Meanwhile, Tyler's participation trophies and team photos covered almost every surface downstairs, like a shrine to his modest athletic career. While searching for my thermodynamics textbook, I noticed a shoebox tucked under my bed. Inside was a collection of childhood memories report cards, school photos. At the bottom, wrapped with a rubber band, was a stack of bank statements addressed to me, dating back to when I was 5. My grandmother had opened a college savings account in my name and contributed every month until she passed when I was 16. The statements showed steady growth over 11 years, reaching a balance of $47,312.86 on my 18th birthday. Then the account was closed. I stared at the final statement, confused and angry. I had never known this account existed. Throughout high school, I believed I would have to pay for college entirely on my own because my parents claimed they couldn't afford tuition. My hands shook as I examined the closure documents. The signature authorizing the withdrawal was my father's. The entire $47,000 had been transferred to Miller Construction Company, my parents' business, on July 15th, 2015. I knew my parents owned a small construction company, but I never paid attention to its finances. They lived modestly, drove older cars, at least until Tyler's Ferrari, and often talked about money challenges. Apparently, those challenges were solved by draining my college fund. My grandmother had saved that money specifically for my education. Instead of honoring her wishes, my parents had used it to support their business. I photographed every page, anger rising with each snapshot. Then I contacted the bank for information about Miller Construction. Because I shared the family name and the details were publicly accessible, the representative provided general financial data. The company now generated over $2 million annually and employed 15 full-time workers. My college fund had been the seed money for a thriving business that provided a comfortable lifestyle for my parents. Yet, I worked multiple jobs through college and accumulated $38,000 in student loan debt, believing they couldn't help me in student loan debt, and never saw a cent of the earnings created from my grandmother's savings. I knew I needed to confront my parents directly, but I wanted more facts first. I drove to the local courthouse and requested public business records for Miller Construction Company. The incorporation documents showed that my father had used my college fund as the initial capital investment in July 2015. The company expanded quickly, landing several major city contracts within 2 years. When my parents came home that evening, I was waiting in their living room with the bank statements spread across the coffee table. My mother gasped at the sight of the documents, while my father's expression tightened with defensive frustration. "Where did you get those?" he demanded. "In my bedroom, where they've apparently been hidden for 7 years," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk about why my college fund was used to start your construction company." My mother sank onto the couch. "It looks like you took $47,000 that Grandma saved for my education." My father crossed his arms. "We didn't steal anything. We borrowed that money during a tough time and always planned to return it. It's been 7 years and your company is worth millions," I replied. "Where is my repayment?" "We've been supporting Tyler through college and helping him get his career started," my mother said calmly. "That money went toward family investments." I stared at her. "You used my college fund to pay for Tyler's education and his living costs. Do you understand how unreasonable that is?" My father stepped forward. "Watch your tone, Nicholas. We're still your parents, and you owe us respect." "Respect works both ways," I said. "Did you respect me when you let me work 3 jobs while Tyler lived comfortably on money Grandma intended for me?" "Tyler needed more help," my mother insisted. "You were always capable and independent. We knew you'd manage." "That's not the issue. Grandma Eleanor saved that money specifically for my education. You had no right to use it for anything else, especially without telling me it existed." My father's look hardened. "We made the best decisions we could with the resources we had. That money helped build a successful business that supports the whole family." "How does it support me?" I asked. "I haven't seen a single dollar from Miller Construction. I had to pay my own way through college while Tyler received the education Grandma funded." The conversation dragged on for over an hour as my parents offered increasingly complex excuses for their choices. They said they planned to surprise me with repayment after Tyler finished school. They argued that working through school built character. They claimed family funds should be used based on need rather than strict inheritance expectations. None of their explanations addressed the real issue, a complete breach of trust. They hadn't only taken my college fund, they let me believe for 7 years that they couldn't afford to help me. Meanwhile, they used my money to build a business and support Tyler's comfortable lifestyle. As I prepared to leave, Tyler walked in from another drive in his Ferrari. He burst through the door, unaware of the tension. "Nicholas, still here? Want to take the Ferrari for a spin? It's amazing!" I looked at his excited face and realized he likely had no idea that my stolen inheritance had indirectly supported his privileged life. My anger toward my parents mixed with pity for Tyler, who had been raised to expect special treatment. "Maybe another time," I said, gathering the statements. "Don't be so uptight about the Christmas gifts," Tyler laughed. "Mom and Dad told me they give us presents based on what we need most. You've got your engineering job and apartment. I'm still establishing my marketing career, so I need reliable transportation. Point." I paused at the door. "What marketing career, Tyler?" "My new job at Sterling Creative Solutions," he said proudly. "I start next week as an account executive. It's a prestigious firm downtown." I'd never heard him mention applying for that job, but I was too drained to question it. Driving home that night, I couldn't stop thinking about my grandmother, Eleanor, who died believing her grandson would get a proper education because of her sacrifices. Instead, her savings had been misused to support the same favoritism that damaged my relationship with my family. It became clearer. My parents didn't simply favor Tyler. They had deliberately taken from me to support him. This wasn't just about holiday gifts or emotional favoritism. It was financial misconduct carried out by the people who were supposed to protect me. The next day, I couldn't focus on my engineering work. Tyler's comment about Sterling Creative Solutions lingered in my mind. He had never mentioned interviews or job offers. Last I knew, he was working part-time at a coffee shop while exploring options. During lunch, I decided to look into it. I drove to the downtown address he mentioned and spent 20 minutes checking the building directory. The 12-story complex held an accounting firm, a law office, a yoga studio, and various small businesses, but no marketing firm named Sterling Creative Solutions. I asked the lobby security guard. He confirmed no such company operated there. To be thorough, I checked the neighboring office buildings, but got the same result. Sterling Creative Solutions didn't exist, not at any downtown location. That evening, I called the phone number Tyler had given our parents. The call went directly to generic voicemail. "You have reached the voicemail box for extension 479. Please leave a detailed message." Something was clearly off. Over the weekend, I researched private investigators. Most were retired officers or security specialists focused on corporate or personal cases. Eventually, I found Jennifer Walsh, a former corporate auditor who shifted to private investigation work, mainly employment checks and financial fraud. Her office sat in a small strip mall 20 minutes from downtown. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and sharp eyes behind wire-frame glasses. Her desk was piled with files, showing she was busy and established. "So you think your brother may be lying about his job?" she asked after hearing my story. "I'm not sure," I admitted. "My family has always had complicated dynamics, but outright deception would be a new level." Jennifer nodded. "Family cases are always emotionally challenging. Employment verification is straightforward, though. Give me his full name, date of birth, and last known address. I should have initial results within 48 hours. I paid her a $500 retainer and gave her Tyler's information. She said she would check employment records, public data, and social media to build a clear picture of his real activities and income. 2 days later, Jennifer called with unsettling news. "Nicholas, you should come to my office. This case is more complex than simple employment verification." When I arrived, she had assembled a detailed report with supporting documents. She spread them across the desk like evidence in a major investigation. Your brother Tyler lost his last legitimate job 18 months ago. She began. He spent 6 months working as an entry-level marketing assistant at Morrison Associates before being let go for poor performance and repeated absences. She showed me employment records she had obtained through professional contacts. Tyler's supervisor had documented ongoing lateness, unfinished assignments, and unprofessional conduct during client meetings. Since then, Tyler hasn't had any verifiable employment, Jennifer continued. But his bank and credit card statements show consistent monthly deposits of $5,000 from your parents' account. This matched what I had overheard at Christmas dinner. Yet Jennifer's investigation revealed even more layers to his deception. One of the most revealing findings involves his social media presence, she said, opening Tyler's Instagram and Facebook profiles on her computer. Do you notice anything odd about these photos? I studied the images, which showed Tyler in a modern office setting, shaking hands with well-dressed professionals and attending business meetings. At first glance, the pictures looked real, but the poses and backdrops felt strangely staged. I ran reverse image searches on several of them, Jennifer explained. These offices belong to a co-working space that rents rooms by the hour. Tyler paid to use their facilities for staged photo shoots. She opened another folder with even more surprising evidence. The people in these photos with Tyler are local actors hired through a talent agency called Spotlight Productions. Jennifer showed me receipts confirming that Tyler paid each actor $300 to portray his coworkers and supervisor during family gatherings over the past year. The deception included fake business cards, fabricated promotional materials, and rehearsed conversations about imaginary marketing projects. He's essentially been running a small theater production for your family, Jennifer said. The actors had been coached on their roles and given scripted answers about Tyler's work and future prospects. The magnitude of his lies was astonishing. He had built an entirely fabricated career, fake colleagues, a non-existent company, and staged office environments. Every story he had told our parents about his professional success had been carefully planned fiction. How did he afford the actors and rented spaces? I asked. Jennifer showed me more bank statements. The $5,000 monthly allowance from your parents covers his living expenses and the cost of keeping up the facade. He's treating this deception like a part-time job. My stomach turned. While I worked 60-hour weeks to support myself, Tyler was using our parents' money to hire actors and stage fake business meetings. The Ferrari they bought him wasn't a reward for career success. It was compensation for a long-running con. What should I do with this information? I asked. Jennifer leaned back. That depends on your goals. You can confront Tyler privately, show the evidence to your parents, or simply use this knowledge to guide your relationship with your family. I thanked Jennifer for her thorough work and drove home with a thick folder proving my brother's deception. That evening, I called Tyler and asked to meet for coffee the next day. I needed to address him directly before deciding how to handle our parents. Tyler suggested the same coffee shop where he had worked part-time before inventing his marketing career. The irony was obvious as we sat across from each other in the place of his last real job. Tyler, I need to ask you some direct questions about your job at Sterling Creative Solutions. I began. His face tightened immediately. What kind of questions? I placed Jennifer's report on the table. The kind that follow hiring a private investigator to confirm your employment. Tyler's face went pale as he saw the photos and documents spread out. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted his coffee. "I can explain everything," he said weakly. "I hope you can, because from my perspective, it looks like you've been lying to our entire family for more than a year and using their money to pay actors to keep your story going." Tyler broke down, putting his head in his hands, sobbing. "I was scared, Nicholas. I couldn't face disappointing Mom and Dad after everything they've done for me." "So fraud seemed easier than honesty?" I asked. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," he said through tears. "I got fired from Morrison Associates and panicked. I told them I still worked there while looking for a new job. Weeks turned into months with no offers. So I started making up stories about interviews and opportunities. That still doesn't explain hiring actors or staging photos." Tyler wiped his eyes. "Mom and Dad wanted to meet my coworkers and see my office. I was too deep into the lie to stop, so I created ways to keep it going. I thought I'd eventually get a real job and no one would ever find out." I looked at him, feeling anger, sadness, and pity. He was terrified of disappointing our parents, and that fear pushed him into elaborate lies. But his deception had also enabled their ongoing favoritism. "Tyler, our parents give you $5,000 every month because they believe you're building a career. You live comfortably while I struggle, and it's all built on lies." "I know," he whispered. "I hate it, but I don't know how to fix this without losing everything." "You'll lose everything when the truth comes out anyway. The only choice is whether you tell them yourself or whether they learn from someone else." Tyler begged me not to reveal anything, promising he would find legitimate work and slowly phase out the fictional career. But that evening at dinner, Tyler told our parents that I had been harassing him and treating him like a criminal. "Nicholas is obsessed with my success," he told them convincingly. "He keeps asking intrusive questions about my coworkers and my workplace. I think he's jealous that my career is moving faster than his." My parents immediately sided with Tyler, accusing me of trying to undermine him. When I tried to present Jennifer's evidence, they dismissed it as fabricated revenge driven by jealousy. The depth of the dysfunction became clear. My parents were so invested in Tyler's imaginary success that they refused to consider any proof. Their favoritism had created a golden child who could do no wrong, and a scapegoat who was blamed for bringing up uncomfortable truths. I realized confronting Tyler had been a mistake. He was too committed to the lie, and my parents were too committed to believing him. If I wanted fairness, I'd need to take stronger action. The dinner confrontation escalated more than any previous argument. My father's face flushed with anger as he slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses shake. "I will not tolerate this behavior anymore, Nicholas," he said. "You're acting like a jealous child who can't accept his brother's success." My mother nodded, her expression stern. "We raised you better. A good brother supports his sibling instead of trying to tear him down." Tyler watched quietly, clearly satisfied. He had successfully portrayed himself as the victim of my supposed jealousy. "I'm not trying to tear anyone down," I said, working to stay calm. "I'm trying to protect this family from being misled." "The only person being manipulative is you," my father replied. "Tyler has been completely honest about his progress. Meanwhile, you're hiring investigators and spreading lies." I brought copies of Jennifer's report, but my parents refused to even look at them. They accused me of creating fake documents and paying people to lie. In their minds, I had become the antagonist in the family narrative. "This ends now," my father said. "You have two options: apologize to Tyler and start supporting his career, or remove yourself from this family. The ultimatum hung heavy in the room. My mother added, "If you want to show you're committed to this family, we expect you to contribute $1,000 each month to Tyler's Business Development Fund. Your brother is launching his own marketing agency and needs startup capital. This is your chance to invest in his success rather than obstruct it." I stared at them, stunned. They wanted me to apologize for discovering Tyler's lies and then financially support them. The Business Development Fund was just another part of Tyler's invented story. "What marketing agency?" I asked. Tyler sat up, ready with another practiced answer. "Sterling Creative Solutions is expanding into independent consulting. I'm building a client base for specialized digital marketing services for small businesses in emerging markets." The lies came easily to him, clearly rehearsed over months. My parents hung on every word, proud of their entrepreneurial son. "Tyler has identified a need in the local market," my father explained. "Small businesses require digital strategies, but can't afford large firms. His agency will provide premium services at reasonable rates." "It's a brilliant model," my mother added. "We've already committed $15,000 in startup costs. But additional family support will help him succeed faster." I looked at them, three people entirely disconnected from reality. They were supporting a business that existed only in Tyler's imagination while praising him for achievements he never earned. "I need time to consider your proposal," I said, already knowing my answer. "There's nothing to consider," my father replied. "Either you're part of this family or you're not. Either you support your brother or continue being destructive." The conversation continued for another hour as they outlined expectations for my behavior. Monthly financial contributions to Tyler's fake business, public apologies for my jealous accusations, and full acceptance of his supposed achievements. Tyler added his own demands. He wanted me to attend networking events for his fictional agency and assist him developing business contacts within my engineering firm. The boldness of his requests was astonishing. He was asking me to actively participate in his dishonesty. "I think Nicholas needs some time to adjust his perspective," my mother finally said. This conversation has clearly been emotional for everyone. As I prepared to leave their house, Tyler followed me to the front door. Away from our parents, his behavior shifted instantly. The confident entrepreneur act vanished, replaced by desperate pleading. "Nicholas, please don't ruin my life over this," he whispered urgently. "I know I made mistakes, but I'm trapped now. If you expose me, Mom and Dad will never forgive me, and I'll lose everything." "You've already lost everything," I replied quietly. "You're living a complete lie, and it's only getting worse. The longer this goes on, the more destructive the final collapse will be." "I can fix this," he insisted. "I just need more time to find a real job and transition away from the marketing story. Please don't tear the family apart over this." I looked at my younger brother and saw a frightened man who had traded his integrity for comfort and approval. His lies had fueled our parents' favoritism and justified years of unequal treatment. But he was too selfish and too afraid to choose honesty over convenience. "Tyler, you broke this family the day you decided fraud was easier than effort. I won't support your deception anymore." That night, I sat in my small apartment assessing my options. I could continue fighting a losing battle against my family's delusions, or I could walk away entirely and build a life free from their toxic dynamics. I spent the next week researching engineering opportunities in other cities and exploring the possibility of a full, fresh start. My skills were in high demand, and several companies in multiple states expressed interest in hiring experienced professionals. The most promising offer came from a renewable energy firm in Denver, Colorado. They needed a senior mechanical engineer to lead their solar panel development team, offering a substantial pay increase and the chance to work on meaningful projects. I scheduled a phone interview for Monday and began planning my exit from the toxic environment my family had created. If my parents preferred Tyler's lies over my honesty, they could deal with the consequences without me. During my final family dinner, Tyler announced plans to expand Sterling Creative Solutions into a full-service digital marketing consultancy. He claimed to have secured 3 major clients and projected first-year revenues of $200,000. I'm thinking about hiring 2 junior associates and renting office space downtown, he said enthusiastically. This could turn into a real family business empire. My parents were thrilled by his ambitious plans and immediately began discussing more financial support. They even considered remortgaging their home to give him additional startup capital and turning the basement into a temporary office. "Nicholas, this is exactly the kind of opportunity you should be investing in," my father said. "Tyler is offering you a chance to become a founding partner in something that could be extremely successful." I nodded politely and pretended to consider the proposal. Knowing it would be my last family dinner, I watched as Tyler's lies escalated to soliciting substantial investments from our parents for a business that didn't exist. The situation was beyond saving. "I'll need a few days to review my finances," I said. "This is obviously a big decision." "Of course," my mother replied, "but don't wait too long. Opportunities like this don't come often." Driving home that night, I felt both sadness and relief. I was grieving the loss of my family relationships, yet also relieved by the possibility of escaping their manipulation and favoritism. The next morning, I accepted the engineering position in Denver and began planning my departure. I would leave on my own terms, with dignity, instead of continuing to beg for equal treatment from people who never intended to give it. On December 31st, at exactly 1 a.m., I loaded the last box into my Toyota Camry and took one final look at my apartment. The sparse furniture and bare walls reflected the simple life I had built, while my brother lived in luxury, funded by lies and favoritism. Despite the modest surroundings, this place represented independence and honesty, qualities that no longer existed in my family home. I had spent the previous week preparing carefully. My furniture was sold or donated, my mail was redirected to a temporary address in Denver, and my resignation letter had been delivered to my engineering firm with 2 weeks' notice. Most importantly, I had consulted an attorney, David Richardson, about the legal implications of my parents' theft of my college fund. David, a soft-spoken family law attorney in his 50s, reviewed Jennifer's investigation report and the bank statements I found in my childhood bedroom. He confirmed that my parents had committed multiple serious violations. Using a minor's college fund for business purposes without proper documentation qualifies as embezzlement, he explained. The fact that your grandmother designated the money specifically for education makes this even more straightforward. David helped me prepare a detailed legal demand for restitution. The letter listed the original $47,312 plus 10 years of compound interest at the current prime rate. With interest included, my parents owed me over $73,000. They have 30 days to provide full payment or propose a reasonable repayment plan, David said. If they refuse, we can file criminal charges for embezzlement and civil claims for financial damages and emotional distress. I paid David's fees and gave him authorization to pursue aggressive collection efforts if my parents failed to respond. Before leaving town, I completed one final task. I drove to my parents' house and parked across the street, staring at the darkened windows of the home where I had spent 18 years. Feeling like an unwanted guest, Tyler's red Ferrari sat in the driveway like a symbol of corruption and favoritism. Quietly, I walked to the front door and placed a wrapped package under the Christmas tree still standing in their living room. Inside were 3 manila folders labeled Tyler's Employment Deception, Embezzlement of Nicholas's College Fund, and Legal Demand for Restitution. The first folder contained Jennifer's full investigation report, photographs of Tyler with hired actors, receipts for fake office rentals, and documentation proving that Sterling Creative Solutions never existed. The evidence was so thorough that even my parents' denial couldn't dismiss it. The second folder included copies of my grandmother's bank statements, the account closure documents, and business incorporation papers proving my parents had used my college fund to start Miller Construction Company. I added a clear timeline of their actions and calculations showing the current value of the business built on my money. The third folder held David Richardson's legal demand letter and copies of the criminal statutes my parents violated. The wording left no uncertainty about the gravity of their actions or the consequences of refusing repayment. I also included a personal letter explaining my decision to leave. After several drafts, I removed emotional language and focused only on facts. Mom and Dad, after 28 years of unequal treatment and financial manipulation, I am choosing to build a new life without your toxic influence. The evidence in these folders documents Tyler's deception and your misuse of my college fund. I am prepared to pursue criminal charges unless restitution is paid in full within 30 days. You raise one son to deceive and another to work hard. The results speak for themselves. I hope you eventually find peace with your choices. But I will no longer participate in the dysfunction. Nicholas. Finally, I added photographs of nearly 3 decades of favoritism. Christmas mornings, where Tyler received expensive gifts, while I was given clearance items. Vacations where he was celebrated and I was ignored. Graduation ceremonies where my accomplishments were overshadowed by his participation trophies. The images formed a powerful record of systemic inequality. Even my parents would struggle to deny it. I placed my house key on top of the folders with a note stating I would not return unless they demonstrated genuine accountability and change. The key symbolized the final break from a family that never valued my effort or respected my dignity. As I drove toward the highway, a wave of liberation washed over me. For the first time as an adult, I was completely free from my family's expectations, manipulation, and favoritism. The 400-mile drive to Denver stretched ahead like the beginning of a new life. I had accepted a position as senior mechanical engineer with Rocky Mountain Solar Solutions, a fast-growing renewable energy company specializing in innovative photovoltaic technology. The salary was 40% higher than my previous job, and the work focused on developing sustainable energy systems for both residential and commercial use. More importantly, Denver represented a clean start with people who would evaluate me based on my abilities instead of comparing me to a manipulative brother. I rented a temporary apartment near the company headquarters and planned to spend my first months exploring Colorado's outdoor activities. My phone was turned off, my social media accounts were deactivated, and my employer was instructed not to share my contact information with anyone claiming to be family. I intended to disappear from my parents' lives until they showed true remorse and accountability. As the sunrise lit the Rocky Mountains in brilliant orange and gold. I realized leaving my family was not an act of revenge. It was an act of self-preservation and respect. I had finally chosen my own well-being over their comfort, and it felt like the first healthy decision I had made in years. The package under their Christmas tree would force them to confront painful truths. Whether they chose honesty and accountability or continued denial would determine whether our relationship could ever be repaired. For the first time in my life, the choice was entirely theirs. 3 months into my new life in Denver, I received a call from my former neighbor, Mrs. Catherine Walsh, who had lived next door to my parents for over 15 years. Catherine, a retired school principal, had always been kind to me and often expressed concern about the favoritism she observed. "Nicholas, I hope you don't mind me calling, but I thought you should know what's been happening in your old neighborhood," she said quietly. "Your mother opened a package on Christmas morning and started screaming. The entire block heard her. According to Catherine, my mother screamed for over 20 minutes, followed by days of shouting between my parents. Neighbors called the police twice, and my family's dysfunction became neighborhood gossip. Your brother's fancy sports car is still sitting in the driveway with a smashed front end," Catherine added. "He apparently crashed into the mailbox during an argument." Her call confirmed that my Christmas package had forced my family to face reality, but I was surprised to learn about additional legal trouble. Meanwhile, my life in Denver exceeded every hope. Rocky Mountain Solar Solutions had a collaborative culture and ambitious environmental goals. My colleagues treated me as an equal, and my engineering ideas were respected and implemented. Within 2 months, I designed an improved solar panel mounting system that increased efficiency by 12% and reduced installation costs. The innovation earned recognition at a national renewable energy conference and attracted industry attention. Nicholas Miller's breakthrough in photovoltaic mounting technology represents a significant advancement for residential solar adoption, wrote the editor of Solar Industry magazine. His solutions address 2 major barriers to widespread renewable energy: cost and efficiency. The recognition was overwhelming after years of being ignored by my family. My colleagues celebrated genuinely, and I was promoted to lead innovation engineer with a substantial raise. My personal life flourished as well. I joined a hiking group that explored Rocky Mountain National Park on weekends, and I learned to ski at several world-class resorts. The physical activity and natural beauty helped me heal from years of emotional strain. Through the hiking group, I met Sarah Rodriguez, an environmental lawyer with a nonprofit focused on renewable energy policy. She was intelligent, driven, and shared my values of honesty, hard work, and environmental responsibility. "You have a different energy from most people," Sarah said early in our relationship. "You seem more grounded, like someone who's overcome something major." I gradually shared my family history, and she listened with understanding. Having experienced her own family struggles, she recognized the importance of boundaries and prioritizing mental health. "People who haven't lived through severe family dysfunction rarely understand why someone would cut contact," she said. They think every family can be repaired with conversation. Sometimes, the healthiest decision is distance. Meanwhile, my previous life was collapsing dramatically. Through my attorney, David Richardson, I learned that Tyler's fictional marketing agency had attracted real investors who discovered his deception and reported him. Your brother convinced several people to invest in Sterling Creative Solutions, David explained. When they tried to meet his employees or visit his office, they found out everything was fake. He's now facing criminal charges for wire fraud and theft by deception. The investigation uncovered more lies and financial inconsistencies. Tyler had taken over $25,000 from investors for personal use. Local newspapers highlighted the story as an example of small business investment fraud. My parents were forced to hire an expensive defense attorney while also dealing with my restitution demand. Their construction business faced scrutiny when investigators found improper accounting and possible tax violations. Miller Construction Company has been paying personal expenses through business accounts and misreporting income, David informed me. The IRS has opened an audit that could lead to severe penalties. The financial strain increased as they liquidated assets to pay Tyler's legal bills and potential restitution to his victims. The construction business built with my stolen college money was collapsing under their mismanagement and Tyler's crimes. Extended family members began reaching out to show support and apologize for believing my parents' claims about my supposed failures. My cousin Amanda, who had witnessed years of favoritism, publicly defended me online. I always wondered why Nicholas seemed distant at family gatherings, she wrote. Now I understand he was protecting himself. I'm proud of him for walking away and building a life on his own terms. Others shared similar sentiments, recounting favoritism they had observed but never questioned. My parents' reputation among relatives and neighbors was permanently damaged. By spring, Rocky Mountain Solar Solutions had grown rapidly, thanks in part to my engineering innovations. The company secured an $8 million government contract, and I was promoted again, this time to Chief Innovation Officer, with equity in future profits. Nicholas represents the kind of innovative thinking that makes American renewable energy competitive globally, said company president Michael Torres. His work is helping advance sustainable energy independence. In only 6 months, my professional accomplishments surpassed everything I had achieved while living under my family's influence. Free from toxic ties and emotional manipulation, I could focus entirely on growth, both personal and professional. Sarah and I had begun discussing marriage and future. We had made plans to continue our environmental advocacy work while building a family grounded in mutual respect and shared values. For the first time, I was experiencing healthy relationships with people who appreciated honesty, effort, and integrity. My family's downfall didn't bring me joy, but it did confirm that harmful behavior eventually leads to serious consequences. Tyler's lies had finally caught up with him. My parents' favoritism had cost them both their business and their reputation, and their refusal to acknowledge their mistakes had resulted in complete estrangement from their eldest son. Justice was taking place, not through revenge, but through the natural outcomes of dishonesty, theft, and manipulation. On Christmas morning, exactly a year after I left, I stood on my parents' porch, holding a leather briefcase and wearing a navy suit that reflected my growing confidence and professional standing. The house appeared smaller and more worn than I remembered. Peeling paint and an unkempt lawn suggested financial strain and emotional decline. Tyler's red Ferrari had vanished, likely sold to cover legal expenses or seized by authorities. In its place was my father's old pickup truck, rusted with a cracked windshield. The contrast between their former wealth and current situation was unmistakable. I rang the doorbell, fully aware that this moment would reveal whether reconciliation was possible or if my departure would become permanent. After a long pause, my mother opened the door and gasped when she saw me. "Nicholas," she whispered, her voice trembling, "you came back." She looked older and more fragile, gray strands in her hair and deep worry lines marking her face. The stress from Tyler's legal issues and their business failure had clearly taken a toll. "I said I would return if there was real accountability and change," I replied calmly. "I'm here to see if that's happened." My father stepped into view behind her, wearing an expression of shame mixed with hesitant hope. Once proud and authoritative, he now looked smaller and unsure. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "There's a lot we need to address and apologize for." Inside the living room, Tyler sat on the couch, looking defeated. He had lost weight and appeared much older than his 25 years. The confident facade he always maintained was gone, replaced by sincere regret. "Nicholas, I'm sorry," he said immediately, his voice low. "I'm sorry for everything, for the lies, the deception, and the way I let Mom and Dad treat you unfairly. I damaged our family, and I accept full responsibility." For the first time, I saw genuine remorse instead of the manipulative pleading he once used. His legal situation had pushed him to confront the reality of his actions. "Tyler has been in therapy twice a week since the arrest," my mother explained. "He's working with Dr. Patricia Newman to understand why he felt the need to lie and how to rebuild his life honestly." "I even got a real job," Tyler added. "Entry-level marketing assistant at a small firm. The pay is low and the work is dull, but it's honest. I'm learning to live within my means." My father cleared his throat nervously. "Nicholas, we paid the full restitution your lawyer required. $73,400 was transferred to your account 6 months ago." I nodded. I had received it, along with interest, and used it to build my retirement fund and buy a home in Denver. "We also want to apologize for taking your grandmother's college fund," my mother added. "We convinced ourselves it was just borrowing, but it wasn't. It belonged to you. And we need to acknowledge how unfairly we treated you," my father continued. "We favored Tyler and enabled his destructive behavior while taking your independence and hard work for granted." I opened my briefcase and handed them a document created with a family therapist in Denver. It outlined the conditions for rebuilding our relationship, grounded in equality, honesty, and mutual respect. "I'm willing to try, but only if these terms are followed," I said. The agreement required family therapy, equal treatment for both sons during holidays and gatherings, honesty about financial and personal matters, and respect for each person's autonomy. It also included immediate consequences if old patterns returned. "We'll agree to everything," my mother said quickly. "We've missed you terribly, and we know we caused deep harm." Tyler looked up from the document. "I don't deserve forgiveness, but therapy has helped me see how my lies supported Mom and Dad's favoritism. I was afraid of disappointing them, so I created a fantasy that hurt everyone, especially you." "I'm not ready to forgive," I replied truthfully, "but I'm willing to work on rebuilding healthier connections based on accountability." Over the next hour, we discussed the steps required for reconciliation. My parents had already researched therapists, and were prepared to start weekly sessions. Tyler had completed a financial fraud counseling program and was committed to transparency about his life. "We've learned that our favoritism didn't help Tyler," my father said. "It enabled him and led to criminal charges and public embarrassment. We thought we were protecting him, but we were preventing him from growing." My mother wiped tears from her face. "And we took your strength for granted. We assumed you didn't need us, but every child deserves equal love. We established ground rules for future interactions. I explained that I would remain in Denver, but was willing to visit monthly for therapy and steady relationship repair. "I want you to meet Sarah," I said, showing them a photo of my girlfriend. "She's an environmental lawyer who supports my boundaries. If progress continues, I'd like to include her in future gatherings." 6 months later, our family was attending therapy sessions with Dr. Elizabeth Carter, a specialist in family dysfunction. The sessions were challenging, but structured and productive. Tyler kept his job and was slowly rebuilding his reputation through steady work and community service. He was dating Jessica Martinez, a teacher he met through volunteering, and their relationship was built on transparency. "Real relationships need vulnerability," Tyler said in one session. "My lies didn't just fool others. They kept me from forming genuine connections." My parents had created a college fund for my future children as a sign of their commitment to fairness. They also started a family foundation offering educational scholarships to underserved students. Using profits from their rebuilt business to honor my grandmother, Eleanor. "We want something good to come from our mistakes," my mother explained. "This program will offer opportunities we once denied you." By the next Christmas, our family dynamic had transformed. Gifts were thoughtful and balanced. Conversations were honest. Everyone worked to maintain the progress we had earned. Sarah joined us and was welcomed with warmth. Later, she told me she saw real effort and care in my family's behavior. "Your family isn't perfect," she said, "but they're trying. That matters." Tyler brought Jessica to dinner and talked about his promotion to account coordinator. His success was modest but meaningful. Our parents supported him, without the excessive praise that once fueled the favoritism. "I'm making 67% less than I supposedly earned at Sterling Creative Solutions," Tyler joked. "But this paycheck is real, and I sleep better knowing I earned it." Sarah and I were now engaged and planning a Colorado wedding with my family in attendance. A celebration not only of our relationship, but of the progress my family had made. "Family dysfunction isn't permanent," Dr. Carter said during our final session. "People can change when they accept responsibility and commit to growth. Your family chose accountability." As we sat around the dinner table that Christmas, I reflected on everything that led us here. Leaving my family had been heartbreaking, but it pushed everyone toward needed change. "I want to thank Nicholas," my father said during a toast. "His decision to leave forced us to confront our actions. Sometimes real love means refusing to enable destructive behavior." I had learned a powerful lesson. Healthy relationships require respect, honesty, and equality. Sometimes you must walk away to protect your well-being. And yet redemption is possible when people truly commit to change. My grandmother Eleanor's stolen college fund became the foundation for our healing. Her investment in my future produced results she never could have imagined. Not just in my career, but in my family's emotional growth. The boy who once received $2 socks while his brother got a Ferrari had grown into a man who understood that real family support isn't measured in money or favoritism. It's about believing in each person's potential and encouraging them equally. Looking around the table, I felt grateful for the work we had all done. The journey had been painful, but the outcome was worth it. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to change, even if it means stepping away. Love isn't enabling harmful behavior. Love is accountability and faith in someone's ability to improve. My family chose growth over denial, honesty over comfort, and real love over toxic patterns. That choice made all the difference. What would you do if you learned your family had stolen from you while favoring a sibling who was lying about everything? Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own well-being? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story spoke to you, please like this video, subscribe for more real stories about overcoming family challenges, and share it with anyone who might benefit from learning the value of healthy boundaries. Thank you for listening, and I hope my journey encourages you to honor your worth and demand the respect you deserve.